So, what does it really take to transform an entire nation? I'm not talking about small policy tweaks here and there. I'm talking about a radical new blueprint for the future. Today, we're diving into one such proposal for Bangladesh, a vision called the Architects of Tomorrow. Now, this whole idea comes from a book by Guru Delawar Hossain, and it's not some dry academic text. No, it's framed as a manifesto, a strategic roadmap for some pretty profound national change. You know, this quote from the very beginning of the book really sets the stage. The argument is that Bangladesh is at a critical crossroads, facing problems so deep that tiny fixes just won't cut it anymore. The stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher. Okay, so if the stakes are that high, what's the end goal here? What kind of future does this blueprint actually imagine? Let's get into the grand objectives that are laid out. The ambition here is just staggering. The goal isn't just to tackle tough problems like corruption and social injustice. It's to actually elevate Bangladesh to the same level as countries like Japan and Singapore. The ultimate aim is to build what the author calls a state of profound trust and prosperity. That's a huge vision. A monumental vision, right? Which, of course, brings up the biggest question of all: how? I mean, a vision is one thing, but a plan is something else entirely. What's the actual mechanism that's supposed to make all this happen? Well, according to the book, the answer is packed into its core manifesto. It's a very specific initiative that's designed to be the engine for this whole national rejuvenation. And here it is. It's called the Legal and Moral Reforms Initiative. You might also hear it called DAFA 22. This is the specific blueprint, the nuts and bolts of how to implement that big vision. So, if we drill down even further, inside this DAFA 22 initiative, we find a very concrete set of proposals. They're all grouped together under the name Article 22. And this is really the actionable core of the entire plan. Okay, now we're getting to the heart of it. This is where the blueprint gets very specific, laying out some legal changes that are, in some cases, pretty controversial. The first proposal is striking in just how clear it is: a mandatory death penalty for the crime of rape. And it says this law must not only be enacted, but strictly enforced. There's really no room for interpretation here. It is an uncompromising stance. Next up, the initiative targets a few other social issues. It calls for the state to actively prevent prostitution, gambling, and adultery. And these aren't just framed as legal issues, but as real threats to the country's social and moral fabric. And here's where we see a direct conflict. There's a proposal from the Women's Commission to recognize prostitution as a profession, as a form of labor. Article 22 takes a very firm stand against this, arguing that this idea must be rejected because it supposedly conflicts with the Constitution and the country's religious and moral values. So, just to quickly recap the key legal points from Article 22. We have a mandatory death penalty for rape, state-led prevention of adultery, gambling, and prostitution, a rejection of professionalizing prostitution, and a call for effective measures to protect women's dignity. So you might be asking yourself, where does the authority for such sweeping reforms come from? Well, the book's answer is that this isn't a new idea at all, but simply about enforcing a mandate that already exists in the Constitution. And here is the exact wording it points to. This direct quote from the Constitution of Bangladesh is cited as the legal foundation for the reforms targeting prostitution and gambling. This directive comes from Article 18, Clause 2, and it's defined as a fundamental principle of state policy. So, according to the book, this isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's presented as a constitutional obligation for the state to act. All right, so after laying out the grand vision, the specific laws, and the constitutional justification, the book brings it all together with a final, unifying call to action for the entire nation. And this context is absolutely crucial. These legal proposals aren't meant to be seen as just isolated fixes. They are framed as essential steps in a much, much larger movement, a revolution for the rejuvenation of Bangladesh. The book's preface ends with this really powerful message of unity. The core argument is that true transformation, a true victory, is only possible when the entire population, all 180 million people, unite behind a single, unwavering purpose. It's a call for collective action on a truly massive scale. And that leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. When you're faced with a blueprint for the future that's this bold and this controversial, What is the role of the individual citizen in driving national transformation? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what it means to build a nation. Thanks for joining us.